Welcome to the Visual K podcast. I'm your host, Frederick, also known as Whirling Black. And today I'm quite sick, so apologize for the voice. Before we move on to the second part of our MUCC episode, which everyone is here for, myself and Alexi will share some Visual K news. Isn't that right?
That's right. And I suppose I can take it away with the newest update regarding Kizu's first and last full-length album. The long-awaited and often postponed, pardon the pronunciation, Gokurakuyori Gokuchou no Ame. Well, it's finally coming out on August 8th, after Lime had long sworn that he would never put out an album. And now that the track list is out, it looks like he's a man of his word, because this isn't much of an album, is it?
How many new songs were there actually once you saw the track list? I forgot.
Depending on your point of view, this album could either feature as few as 3 completely new tracks, which essentially means it's a propped up single. Or if you haven't really been listening to their single track drops on Spotify, it's kind of like a 50-50 split, I guess. But some of those singles A-sides on this album are 7 years old.
That's quite impressive.
I don't know if there's even another example in Visual K where you drop like a full-length album with an A-side single that old. And I'm so many of them, there's multiple tracks that are about that old.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, at least to me, it sort of looks more like a second best-of album. But I suppose all the older tracks are at least re-recorded, weren't they?
That's true. They specifically highlighted that in the tracklist drop. I guess I'm, as a big Kizu fan, sort of in a merciful position because I haven't really listened to the latest material all that much. So hearing it in the context of the album, I can probably take it as a single unitary work rather than a patchwork of A-sides and B-sides like Kataki was, which becomes slightly exhausting when it's just like one high-octane A-side after another. It's not structured like an album.
Yeah, I mean, I know I will be listening to this when it comes out, and I am most assuredly going to enjoy it, but it's still slightly disappointing to know that after all this time they couldn't bring themselves to add at least a couple more original tracks to the album.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of an embarrassment of riches situation because they are very prolific, like they have a lot of music out, and that's fair enough. But, you always have that asterisk of what could it have been if they'd sort of seen their career like, let's say, Lunacy in the 1990s, where each album was its whole aesthetic universe,
Ah, yeah. The difference is quite stark.
Oh, yeah.
But also, I mean, at least from my perspective, I feel like Kizu didn't really want to do this album. I feel like they might have been strong-armed by the label into this. That's speculations, I want to make clear. Okay, so moving on from the Kizu album, we also have 2 new Kuroyume re-recording albums coming out on the 15th of July. They're re-recording Drug Treatment and Corkscrew, 2 of my least favorite Kuroyume albums. Do you have any opinion on this, Alexei?
I'm looking forward to them. I think it's especially their later albums that can actually survive the adaptation into Kiyoharu's current style that he's been doing with his solo career and other endeavors, which you can use the dreaded term mature in describing it, which is to Frederick's horror. You know what? The first 3 albums are obviously classics, and I think first and second are like in my top 5 VK albums of all time. They would suffer from being yanked out of that greenhouse of the past and re-recorded at this place and time.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, they did do that re-recording of the Rakushi Unmei song in 2014. I thought they did that pretty well. But, I mean, this is obviously the era of Kuroyume that is most popular with their current fan base, so it totally makes sense for them to re-record it. But from the samples I heard, I wasn't super convinced that it's going to be very different from the originals. But still, probably worth checking out.
Yeah, I think for the fans it's great. I think it's a little better maybe than, for example, the re-recording of the first Lunacy album, which while respectable. Just felt like it was a little bit slower, a little more mellow version of the original. This one has a little bit of that suaveness from Kiyoharu's solo stuff. I really actually respect Kiyoharu as an artist, even in his old man stage. So that's probably why I'm kind of positive about it.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, I think for fans this is going to be exciting. And it is a big Visual Kei news. I mean, you can't really get that much bigger in Visual Kei than Kuroyume.
You just wait until X records their albums.
Oh, yeah, I saw in the news, actually, like right before we started recording, I saw news that Yoshiki and Jonathan Davis, is he called that? The guy from Korn, is going to perform together at Disneyland or something like that.
You actually heard it here first, but they will announce that they are re-recording Vanishing Vision with Jonathan Davis and vocals.
Yeah, that's I look forward to that. This might not be accurate news, just so everyone knows. And moving on to another very important piece of news, I would say for newer fans of Visual Kei, is that Kagero, the legendary early 2000s Visual Kei band, finally has their full discography on Spotify.
Yeah, I've been going back to their first two albums and the singles around that period, and the thought crossed my mind that at that time when they were doing that stuff, that was like one of the best bands ever. Really incredible and very much a prototype for the kind of stuff that we still have in the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of their sound is remarkably fresh and feels like a lot of current bands are borrowing a lot from their both their sound and the feel of their music. So that's highly recommended, I would say, for people who are maybe fans of shit like Mamireta and stuff like that today.
Yeah, definitely. I just laughed because you said shit like Mamireta. Full disclosure, I'm a huge Mamireta fan. But yeah, no, exactly. It's that like new metal menhera sound. Like if you want to go straight to the source, listen to Kagero's first album.
Yeah, I want to make clear that I did not mean shit in a disparaging way. I too enjoy Mamireta's music.
This was one of those good shits.
Yeah, indeed.
Actually, I would like to also piggyback off that, speaking of Spotify. Oz is also supposedly coming on Spotify, albeit in a more diminished form in a compilation album of sorts.
Yeah, which is also nice because it's one of those bands from sort of like the late 2000s that is extremely forgotten today, and probably because they haven't really had any presence in a while.
Definitely, and Kagero, I think, is another band that's sort of there. Something like Renterer and Soy that were huge back in the day, or huge in the sense that everybody knew them, but now they're sort of being forgotten. So it's great that they'll be popping up on streaming and going into the algorithm.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I suppose before we jump back in and Aaron rejoins us and Frederick's voice magically goes back to normal, please consider subscribing, giving us a like or a 5-star rating, and recommend us to your friends. It really helps us get the show out to more people.
All right, and now let's get back to talking about MUCC again, part 2. So we left off the first episode just as Hiro had left the band, and we talked about the Shuka demo tape that was released the same day as he left. And the following release after that, which was in July 99, is their demo tape Aka.
So by this point, Hiro had left the band, their original bassist and childhood friend. Nobody knows where that guy went. I've never seen any mention of him in interviews about why he left or where he went. I'm assuming maybe he just retired. Who knows? Hopefully it wasn't some huge bad blood, but you never really know. But UK, a frequent fan of the band who they had become close with, I don't think he was a roadie. I think he was a fan. Maybe I'm wrong. But what I've heard is that he was a fan of the band and he frequented their shows and they knew he played bass and they offered him a spot in the band and he took Hiro's spot. And that was pretty much the start of this. This Aka is pretty much almost like an announcement for UK. that we got this new cool bassist with a bowl cut. Speaking of bowl cut, I think by now Tatsuro actually started wearing his bowler derby hat live. That his signature, like.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah.
And I never thought about this as well, but this is the first release where they use MUCC in katakana instead of MUCC in all caps romaji. So I'm kind of wondering if like this change was supposed to be, you know, well, we have a new member, so we're switching the way we stylize our name, or if that's just like putting too much thought into it and they just thought it looked cool on this one tape. Oh, damn it. It actually says MUCC though in romaji on the side of the tape, so I guess they had both. Sorry, James showed us a picture that showed that they actually had the katakana already on the first tape, so...
Definitely.
Okay, my theory is ruined.
It's a very great song, iconic in the band's catalog. One of the first songs that I learned on guitar, actually. Fun fact.
Oh, that's cool.
I've since forgotten most of it, but that opening arpeggio, surprisingly easy to play.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Like this intro, it's one of the most atmospheric, like Visual Kei tracks that I can think of. It almost has like a black metal-esque feel to it to me.
Is it just me, or is this an enormous departure from their previous music? And I think they didn't go back to a lot of the stuff that they were doing before after they put this one out. The nostalgia that they had before acquires a kind of a melancholic aspect. And I mean, I think actually melancholic might be like underplaying it. It's depressing. And this is when the depression starts really bubbling to the surface, and that's something that they would develop until basically it imploded in Kuchiki no To. Tatsuro strains his voice and yelps in a way he didn't do before.
Yes. Oh man, so much more emotion in his voice, and you can tell they're really maybe taking it more seriously by this point. Even just judging the cover art from the past releases, it's clear that they were just kind of having fun figuring it out, and now it's almost like the beginning of, okay, we're doing this for real now. They're probably all unemployed and they're just banned full time.
Excuse me, you have to work in a call center to have the kind of emotions that he's channeling right here.
Yeah.
I think it's true, like this is a very clear change from what they were doing before, and it's also telling that it's 5 months after the last release, which is, you know, by modern standards that's lightning fast, but by the standards of the time, I think this was considered like they had kind of a break.
2000 Visual Kei standards, this is a hiatus.
Yeah, 5 months, you know, that's...
Yeah.
Crazy. Basically, you know, fans were waiting for disbandment at this point. Oh, also, I wonder if the album following their first CD album, Antique, was announced at the time, and this demo could be read as like a preview of the album, or if the tape was just, you know, a standalone release, and then they just happened to include it on the following album as well.
Something that kind of dawned on me just now is the quality jump in the recording for this song compared to their previous releases coincides almost directly with the quality jump in recording for the previous Caligari releases. And I'm wondering if they shared a studio at the time. If there's any like super nerds listening in, please engage with our video because we will read it. Were they sharing a studio? Because that would make a lot of sense. Because right after Aka, Caligari released Dai 5 Jikenshitsu. And it's like the quality jump there between 4 and 5 is so clear. So, you know, it would make a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, it would absolutely make a lot of sense. Because like we mentioned earlier, by this point, the band was already based out of Tokyo as well. So there's no reason for them not to do it, especially if they were on the same label and shared a lot of other stuff.
There was a label meeting, and I was like, okay guys, give me your watches, rings, necklaces, everything. We're gonna put it together and we're gonna invest this into a studio.
That's right. Whatever you got. Throw away, Tatsuro, throw away your beanies. I have this bowler derby in the closet. You're gonna have to start wearing this from now on.
Yeah, it's just like
it's from 1945. I got it in a box of old American imports, old British imports, actually.
I was looking at lives today, and I was thinking, why are they wearing these hats?
What's the significance?
It's because this is something that has ran, like, it continues to this day. Like, intermittently, they would just put one on the live. I was watching the QTI tour final or something like that, and Mia is wearing like one of those hats, but he has some print, and I was like, this is a crime against fashion. Like, this will not stand.
That's another thing. Also, harkening back to the are they typical Visual K, is these guys always tried to do something with their look that was almost like the opposite of what was fashionable at the time. Total hipsters in the scene.
So true.
Absolutely. And I think also, at least in my mind, a lot of it was based more on looking interesting than looking good, let's say. Like, their looks was more trying to be artistic than trying to be pretty boys, let's say.
There is a lot of footage of their old lives on YouTube. There is a video where they're basically watching their old footage, and there's some footage from a Halloween live, and they look like a great VK band in that. So it wasn't something that like that just wasn't within their means to do. They just chose not to do it, and their looks, especially at this time, probably was a very thought out artistic statement. So I think what you said, Aaron, is entirely correct. That they were always just trying to be like a little bit left field.
And also, like we mentioned, this is also the first proper release with Yuka on the bass. So like you said, it's kind of like his intro to the band proper.
And he really added to the bizarre look to it because he's got that ridiculous haircut.
Yeah, that he has kept to this day.
Yeah, he's altered it very slightly, but it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, very committed to that one look.
There is an interview with Gazette Freita, I think, where he says, well, you know, the fans expect the mask, so what am I going to do? It's the same with the bowl cut.
Yeah. The haircut is a prison in its own way. Like, I remember seeing a magazine scan of Yuke wearing like a black shaggy wig, and I didn't recognize him at first. I'm just like, that's Yuke? That's crazy. He's so much his hair that it's you change that and it's like he's just some other guy.
Was that for one of those like fake old school Visual K things they were doing for a
No,
second?
I think it was like a fool's mate thing, and he was wearing a suit and he had a shaggy black haircut. And he had like a slice of bread in his mouth or something.
This is very disturbing. I don't want to see this.
Yeah. You guys know the guy from Uncafe with the afro, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not exactly an afro, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
I somewhat recently saw one of the newer pictures, and he's actually dropped it.
Yeah, he dropped it like
No.
years ago.
I couldn't recognize him. I thought it was a different guy. He's very handsome, actually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what would happen if Yuki changed his hair. No one would recognize him.
You know what? I had this thought when I was looking at their live from, like, I think this was something from 97. Just on YouTube, and they look like the kids from Battle Royale.
Totally.
Okay, so let's move on to the first proper CD release of the band, which is called Antique, and it was released on the 25th of December in 1999.
So with this release, Antique, the band had finally come fully developed into their identity as a band. They have a knack at this point for mixing Showa pop melodies with heavy metal instrumentation, switching tempo on a dime, and with vocals that are at one moment melancholic and gloomy and then frustrated and angry the next. A lot of their lyrics at this point deal with themes of misery and loss. There's also a lot of social satire and sort of Tatsuro's signature sardonic attitude. He's very much come into this confidence at this point with his voice and his lyrics. And they're growing very popular in the live circuit, and their engaging personalities and their unique music is pulling bigger crowds every show. And Antique was their first big release since Shuka. And this time they, and arguably Owl, could finally afford a full album pressing. with actual good production value and things like that. And that song that we had a sample for is Orugoru, a great sort of high-tempo, almost grunge rock tune. The soft verses with the loud choruses feel very kind of 90s grunge, but through a MUCC filter. It's a great song.
Yeah, it was actually one of my early favorite tracks by them. It was one of the first MUCC songs I really fell in love with. I think these days I got so used to the faster live version that going back to the CD, it feels like someone put the tempo down. Because when they play it live, they do it in a more like fast, punky way. But this is obviously also great. Like you said, it gets more of a grunge feel instead.
I remember back in the day, talking about a live performance, I had a video file on my computer of them performing this song. And I don't know where it came from, if it was from a DVD or an event or something. But I thought Tatsuro looked so cool in it with his goth spiky hair. And I watched it 100 times. I loved the whole vibe, and he had such power in his voice. And Mia actually sings sort of like the call and response in the chorus with Tatsuro, and it was just really cool.
I also wanted to mention that, I mean, you kind of said it as well, but I feel like the vocals has upgraded a lot. Like in the earlier demos, the vocals are still nice, but I think they have this kind of crap quality to them as well, in the best possible way. Yeah. Like someone once said to me that he sounds a bit like a sad Kermit the Frog, and I never, lost that image in my mind. But at this point, I think he's like you said, fully developed his style, and this is kind of how he sounds from here on out.
Not just him, I think Orugoru and Kokonoka are their most ambitious compositions yet. Especially in the latter, I was actually stunned now approaching this release not in isolation, but as a part of the whole discography. That just like, they were really reaching out very early.
Yeah, and earlier you mentioned nu metal influences. I feel like Yakeato really brings in the nu metal a lot more. Just the guitar tone, really in particular, especially in the bridge when it's got that drop tuning and the screeching mute riffs, which is kind of perfect because right around the Y2K, everyone was getting into nu metal. So
I assume that's where the depression was coming from, and then it just fused with the all Japanese nostalgia and created a completely unique musical and even visual aesthetic in them. And that's why they are like almost like an isolated phenomenon in Visual Kei.
It's worth to mention also that Yakeato was not originally a part of this album. It was added for the second press, which came out in mid-2000. So it's possible that it was not recorded in the same session as the other tracks. But if it's not, it certainly sounds like it, because you cannot tell any difference in production or anything like that, I would say.
This is a great release. This is something that's sort of stands as a pillar for this early era of MUCC, as a really good sampler for pretty much everything that we're good at the time.
Yeah, I would say that if someone has not tried old MUCC yet and is curious to do so, I would probably send them first to this release, because if they go back to the tapes, it might be a bit too rough for them. But at this point, I feel like this is something like, if you like this, you should go back and try the earlier stuff as well. But this is like gold standard for this early style of the band.
The tapes, the earlier ones, I mean, they become more interesting when reflected against the rest of the discography rather than in isolation. Whereas if you would have to hear just one release from MUCC and just leave it at that, you could go with Antique.
Yeah. So after Antique, the band did some touring, and the next release was in June of 2000, which is called Shofu High.
I remember finding the tracks for this release on WinMX back in the day. And it was one of the first, few things I ever heard by them. And I just remember listening to these tracks over and over and over. Mia's riffs at this point are just so infectious, and I'm glad that opening riff was in the sample we played because it's just so much fun and it's just great and it feels so powerful. Again, it's like, can't believe it's one guitarist because he's able to put so much into it that you don't feel like there's anything missing in the mix. It's just like a powerhouse.
To me, Shofu has a similar feeling to Tsubasa Okudasai in the way that it has this very strong melodic guitar riff and like pretty fast track. And you can see why this is still like a setlist staple. It's one of those older songs that they play like every year. At least they bring it out a couple of times. And, you know, super catchy, high energy. And it works really well in combination with some of the more modern tracks as well, because it's, you know, it has the energy and the catchiness and stuff like that.
It's nice and somewhat validating to see them notice that, okay, we actually did hit something here, even if it's in a different style. You know, not like with some bands when they did like something completely different before and they kind of prefer to disown it because it just doesn't fit with the way that they conceive themselves at that moment. With MUCC, they seem to be able to evaluate their old stuff on the basis of quality in some sense.
It's worth mentioning also that this day it was released is, I believe, the day that's called MUCC Day, which is the 9th of June, I believe. That's the day they celebrate their anniversary every year. Also, the second pressing of Antique came out on the same day as the single.
And MUCC Day, I think they dubbed it MUCC Day because they use the numbers 6, 9 a lot, almost like a symbol of their band. It's not only a sexual joke, but it's like, I think the kanji for 6 and the kanji for 9 can be pronounced as muku. And so they use that often as like almost a shorthand for the band name.
I think 90% of the people in my country, when they saw that, they were like, okay, sex, I get it. Like, yeah, fair enough.
Cool, yeah, I'm on board. Let's do this.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think the B-side is worth mentioning as well, because I think High is a very cool track as well, and it showcases the band doing a bit slower, moody tracks, which I feel like for the next few years is going to be like one of their very strongest points.
This is definitely a prototype for what was to come.
And great bonus track too, Boku no.
Yeah, and it's track 69 on the CD.
Yeah. It's a fun, just kind of heavy metal driving kind of song.
Yeah, it was used for the same way that they had previously used Kranke, like the, you know, high energy Rush song, you know, that the audience went crazy to towards the end of the gig. And they actually took this track and remixed it with another bonus track, and it became Kuruta Kajitsu on the Tsuuzetsu album. So the song got revamped, let's say. Okay, so before we move on to the next release, we'll just have a quick ad break.
Hey! Ever wonder how the Nagoya Visual Kei scene kicked off? Well, I hear there's a cool new YouTube channel with a brand new video up that will tell you all about it. Check out VKGY on YouTube to see informative Visual Kei content just like that. That's also a good spot to find every episode of the Visual Kei podcast, which you probably already know if you're listening to this on YouTube. Anyways, we've mentioned the podcast as a Discord channel, but did we mention that that's also where you can submit ideas for new episodes? Well, it's true. There's so much to talk about that sometimes it's hard to pick just one for an episode, so we'd love to hear what our listeners think we should do next. Hop on in and give us an earful. Links to both VKGY's YouTube channel and Discord server can be found in the description. Thanks for listening!
Alright, and now we are back. So, before we hit the album, there is one more release to cover, and that is another VA album, or omnibus, which is called Non-Standard File at 6 Site. And it was released in July of 2000. This track is interesting because a lot of people have only heard the version they released in 2002 on the Homura Uta album, so I think people don't really know that it's a much older track than that. The song is called Kokuen, by the way.
The cat concurred.
Yeah. But yeah, Kokuen is like it's interesting that, you know, there's the alternate version, because even though this was an omnibus track before an album before Homura, it sounds very Homura Uta. It's got a lot of elements that they would explore more on that album, like Tatsuro almost rapping, like very fast delivery of vocals.
This song would be an absolute nightmare at karaoke. Like,
Yeah.
the lyrics are like just long wall of text. I read them sometime. It's like just a wall of text, and so fast as well.
And then the other track was like an acoustic version of Kokonoka, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a big fan, but I one thing I noticed is that Mia is on backing vocals, actually recorded singing this time. Maybe for the first time. Maybe not. Maybe Orogoro, he's kind of there. But if you listen to Kokonoka, you can kind of hear his voice doing backup.
Yeah, you can. I'm not actually sure about it, because I feel like there might be other instances where he's doing backing vocals, but they're kind of quiet.
Mm-hmm. Blends in really well.
Yeah, but anyway, I thought it was interesting to include this because this song was already on setlists back in '99, and, you know, at the time it would probably have stood out a bit, but like you said, on Homura Uta it fits perfectly, so it's interesting how they kind of grew into this sound some years later.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so ahead of its time in some sense. Actually, not in some, in many ways, actually. And during the little show prep that I did, this is also the point going through the discography, and I was thinking like, you know what, I understand it now. I think back in the day, you might have had some debates with big MUCC fans who were like, well, you know what, they were depressed and then they discovered some joy in life and stuff like that. And I really like where they are now, that it doesn't sound so depressed. But obviously me as an edgy teenager, I was like, well, you know what, I like them dark. But now as an, you know, an older man with a full-time job and etc. So I'm thinking like, yeah, you know what, this is a bummer. Like I don't know if I want to listen to any more of this, because like it's actually getting me down.
Yeah, need a little bit of some joy injected in your veins.
Yeah, but I will say that the way that they rendered pain and anguish at this time is really their discography stands as a monument to this kind of stuff in Visual Kei.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that starting from basically around here and the coming like 3-4 years, I think, you know, the stuff they put out, it has not been surpassed since, I would say, in terms of like just the brutal depression it portrays.
Yeah, this is the most harrowing song I think they had done up to that point, and in that it definitely fits better in the second album and not the first.
Yeah. Which we're not covering in this episode, by the way, just so no one gets their hopes up.
Yeah, you have to subscribe to...
It's Patreon only.
To listen to the second.
Yeah, it will be on a live distributed tape.
Live distributed tape only. You have to go to Club Lunacy to get it.
Yeah, I will hand it out. You would have to come up to me on stage and ask for the secret tape, and then I will just take it from under the table, you know, and give you a copy.
But that is only if you bought all the other merch and then you show them that I have bought everything, which means that now I'm actually entitled to buy the last piece of merch, which is like the last boss of merch, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The final boss of merch. And it's one of two tapes. You'll either get the episode or you'll get Robert No Theme.
Your cover.
Yeah, you know, there's a chance that you can get pranked, so you better buy two, just to be sure.
All right, so I think it's time to move on to the big one now, the first full-length album, Tsuuzetsu, which is from January of 2001.
So this is, in my opinion, the peak of their first era, and appropriately so, because it's the last big thing before their indie breakout album, Homura Uta. And many people say, to this day, even old school MUCC fans will say that Homura is the better album, but I much prefer Tsuuzetsu for its sort of style and its melancholy, and just the catchy melodies and riffs abound. It's also front to back fantastic, whereas Homura, for me, actually has a couple skips.
To me, I see them completely separate, because for me, this is the kind of indie Caligari Circle kind of vibe, and then with Homurauta is they're already leaning into those American influences in a big way. So I see a rift between them.
Yeah, a lot more Western influence on Homura than this, which is really still tapped into that sort of early core period.
It's interesting you saying that because for me at least, I always saw this album as a transitional album. Let's say that it's, Antique for me is the peak of, early period MUCC, and this album is kind of like the transitional phase. It has some, examples of what is coming up in the future. There's a couple of new metal inspired riffs here and there that you obviously see much more in the following album. But I also think that, like we discussed on the last release as well, that there's more of this in-your-face depression, let's say, while the earlier stuff might lean more into like nostalgia, wistfulness, and things like that.
And it actually opened up with, I would say, my favorite MUCC song of all time. It's also the first one I ever heard. I remember reading on the official MUCC website around that time as well. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it was a fan site that wrote out the interview type stuff. But you know how like old fan sites used to have like a bio and you click the member and it was like a bio that somebody found in a magazine somewhere. But a lot of the members at the time listed Itai Tegami as their favorite song by the band up to that point.
That's interesting.
But it really, sort of exemplifies this era for me. It has that aching, sorrowful lyric delivered by Tatsuro's warbly vocals, but much more polished by now. It almost sounds like he's singing through a sob.
Yeah.
That's a very sort of signature part about his singing, is like almost like he's belting, but he's also a little bit crying. Like he's got tears just kind of welling up. His throat's a little bit tight, but beautiful melodies, great creative guitar arrangements, great overall mood.
That song is a good example because that one doesn't really have the sound of the next album in it almost at all. I mean, it has a little bit of that, bounce the fuck up kind of middle vibe, but not overtly as the Momoku something or other track, which is probably what Frederick means when he says that this is a transitional work, because that one could maybe be reworked into the next album. But I think I don't know if Aaron actually agrees with this, but I see this not as a transitional necessarily, but as a culmination. In relation to that, Antique then stands as like a lone monument somehow in the middle of it all.
I was going to say actually that I think Itai Tegami is one of those songs that I feel the most foreshadows what's coming up. Not necessarily in the way the guitars are played, but in the way that, like I mentioned, just this in-your-face crushing depression, Tatsuro almost crying while singing and stuff like that.
That's true. But he was definitely a master to me at this point already. Just the way that, like you said, he's on the edge of it, but he always remains in control, I think is a sign of somebody who's very good at the instrument that they're playing, is that it's not like so overt that he's not hamming it up. He's just always a little bit on the edge, that there's a tension going, across the song.
Yeah, it's like he's holding back, whereas so many people try to overtly portray sadness and misery. His voice sounds very much like he's like trying not to go there, but it's there.
It feels very real and not phoned in, let's say that.
Yeah, there you go.
I wanted to mention as well, since I said it was transitional, I think the song Haitoku no Hito is very throwback to the early period. Once again, you have those melodic guitars, sort of galloping rhythms and stuff like that. That's one of my favorites, actually. That one and Itai Tegami are my two favorite tracks from this album.
And you mentioned galloping, actually. I have a note similar. Suna no Shiro is a lovely folk song that sounds a little bit like a Wild Western kind of ballad. It's got it sounds straight out of an old cowboy movie, and which really sort of connects into that nostalgia feeling, because the Kaio Kyoku era of Japan, where the music was like influenced by Western media, but still had its own feel, was right around the time when there were samurai westerns going. And so they have songs on this album like Suna no Shiro that feel kind of like a samurai western atmosphere, and it feels like cowboy music.
Have you heard the Sin Tsuuzetsu re-recording album?
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, it was released in conjecture. No, that's not the word. In conjunction. Yeah, thank you, James. In conjunction with the with the tour. So I actually bought both the Homurauta and the Tsuuzetsu re-recording albums while I was at the gigs.
All of those songs are pretty much the same, with the exception of Suna no Shiro. And while I was going through this album, I was thinking even, this is a sign of me getting old, because I was thinking that I really enjoyed this re-recording. It was very faithful to the original. It just felt like there was a little bit of oomph where you had to have some. The vibes and the melodies, atmosphere was still faithfully rendered. And Tatsuro, I think, is making all the right choices for emphasizing certain things, laying off in others. But then Suna no Shiro was just... what did they do? There's piano there. I was thinking really like, this is if they had Yoshiki feature on it, because it sounded like the piano was just too much like showing off, almost like, the kind of a thing if he was just called like, hey, you gotta play in Madison Square Garden tomorrow, just compose a song. And he's like, yeah, okay, I think I got something. And then he's just gonna, add these flourishes in there. No. I just think it like tonally doesn't fit with the rest of the album at all.
Yeah, I don't know about what's with the re-recording that for some reason when I hear it, I just would rather hear the original in most of the cases. And they're not that different. And in some ways, like you said, there's flourishes and there's, areas where things have been, improved in a more polished way, but I don't know what their intention was behind the re-recording. I'll have to look at
money?
Yeah, maybe money.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I do think so. Yeah, I think it was for their 20th anniversary. So I think, yeah, maybe they were contractually obliged to release some kind of, re-recording compilation or something.
But, if you're a super fan, it's just nice to have it. You can compare stuff like that. It's nice. So when I said money, I didn't mean it in a way that I'm like lambasting them for doing it, whatever. Like for us, like people who like live and breathe Visual Kei, like we would have all of the bands that we listen to re-record their whole discographies every day, putting it up somewhere.
No, but the thing is, at least I think that, like we have mentioned several times in this podcast already, that MUCC is a band that is very faithful to their original music. Like when they re-record a song, they do not make a completely new track out of it. It's not, like Dear and Grey 15 years ago, where a re-recording could basically be a completely new song with the same title, let's say.
That's so true. MUCC is very aware of what made their old music so good. Whereas I feel like Dear and Grey are constantly trying to atone for something that nobody wants them to atone for. Like, we all love it the way it is. Just like update it and maybe, make the guitar solos more elaborate or something, just make it more interesting. But instead they're just like, nope, redo, pretend that ever happened. But yeah, MUCC are very much the opposite of that. They've gone on to release various compilations of their old work and self covers and things like that. It always kind of sticks true to the original feel. I want to mention that Yoru is my second favorite song on the album, and you wouldn't think it would be really a favorite because it's such a sort of meandering ballad, but I don't know. That song is like the perfect example of when a song hits you just right at a nostalgic period in your life and you can never not love it ever again, I would say that's almost maybe even my second favorite MUCC song ever. It's also Yuke's first song that he contributed to the band. Up to now, songs were composed mainly by Mia and occasionally by Tatsuro. I don't know if Satoshi did any songs at this point. Maybe not till later. I
agree, actually. I think Yoru is amazing, especially the chorus. It's always in my mind.
Yes, it's really good. I mean, I can sort of ruminate on the feelings that song gives, and I don't even know what it's about. That's so weird about being a Western fan of VK, is you can listen to songs and feel things and have mental images without ever reading the lyrics. But this is one of those songs that does that.
And sometimes, it actually works to our advantage. Like some songs, I feel like if we knew what it was about, we would probably cringe a bit.
That's so true.
It's like, yeah, you can project yourself into it. Whereas if
Yeah.
it's like Western, it would basically be like the divorced dad rock playlist from Spotify, where like if you had it like, you know, AI translate, it would be like, I hate everything about you. It would be like, no, fuck that. Whereas if you hear like them singing Japanese, you're like, oh my god, this is so profound. This is my life.
Yes, I feel this so much in my soul. And then you know, if it's like your native language, it's a totally different thing. I actually had that experience a few times back in that same kind of early 2000s, where I tried to make friends on MSN Messenger from Japan who liked Visual K, and I would talk to them about certain songs and things that I really liked, and they'd be like, you know, I just don't like that song. The lyrics are so corny and so forced edgy, and I'm like, really? Because I would have no idea. Like, you know.
Sir, actually, have you seen these fan translations that I have? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
pretty
exactly the same
profound.
reaction that I got. I was once in like Moldova of all places, talking to like a guy who quit his bank to travel the world, and I was like, well, this is what I ask any Japanese person I meet, like, do you know Visual K? And then the first thing they'll be like, yeah, I know Glay, and then I'm like, but what do you think of Caligari?
Yeah.
And then you just like, and they're like, they kind of immediately start distancing themselves, like, you know, I don't know about that stuff. They're extremely polite about it, obviously. They'll be like, yeah, you know what, maybe not my thing, but you can clearly tell, like, for them, this is like if somebody came up to me and was just like, what what do you think of 3 Days Grace?
Yeah.
As a person from the Western
Yes.
Hemisphere, I'm like, well, gee, I don't know.
Mhm. They don't want to tell you that it's embarrassing, but it is. They're like, I want you to enjoy what you enjoy, but to me, it just doesn't hit. Yeah, totally. That happens. Actually, a specific instance, not to digress too far, is I was chatting with a friend on MSN Messenger about the band Mary. They had just come out with their second album. No, not second, third album. Listening to Kubitsuri Rondo. And I'm like, hey, have you heard this new Mary song? It's really good. And I sent it to him and he was like, well, the music video is pretty cool, but the song is literally just about hanging yourself. Like, where's the art in that? It's just like a guy singing about hanging himself. Like, there's nothing more in the lyrics here. He's just killing himself. And I'm like, okay, cool. Good to know. You know, it doesn't affect my feelings, but it makes sense.
Did you block him?
I quickly blocked him right after that. I'm like, I can't deal with this. You know,
Never talked again.
yeah, if you can't see the art in Suicide, I don't want to talk to you. No. But yeah. Yeah, Yoru, great song. I want to go back to that real quick. Very atmospheric song. It sounds like a damp alleyway. Yuki's a great songwriter, and he went on to write some also really great songs for the band. And I'm kind of sad he doesn't write more music.
Well, you felt his presence immediately when he joined the band, I think. So he was probably taking part, if not in songwriting capabilities like full stop, at least in like the creative direction as a general thing. But there are still commonalities between this album and the very, very first stuff. And the way that you were describing that song sounds like you were describing this whole album, I think.
Yeah, it's such a dark alleyway album, for sure. Like standing in a dark alley with my head in my hands, being really sad about something. Occasionally really mad about something.
This album has that galloping thing and this sort of mid-tempo thing, whereas with like Homura Uta, they're more forceful, aggressive across the board.
So I think to like wrap this up, I would just like to take a second to talk about all of the stuff we've gone through in these 2 episodes, because I feel like even though we've only covered a couple of years, there's enormous development and change in MUCC from like the no demo tape to this Tsuuzetsu album. It's only like barely 3.5 years, and enormous development. And it's been really fun covering this with you guys.
Yeah, this was very fun. This is one of my favorite bands ever. Not even in Visual K, just ever in general. So I was very excited to be part of this. Let me know if we're going to do part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6, all the way up to Q-Tai, and then I'm checking out.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, based on our release rate, I guess, Q-Tie episode will be sometime in like 2036 or something like that.
Cool. Yeah, sounds about right.
I guess I was the newbie in this group, but prepping for this episode made me realize just how visual kei they truly were in the beginning, which is not something that I was really aware of as much until now. Like how much Mia was just building his style from those visual kei fundamentals, and you don't really appreciate that much because he progressed so fast.
Yeah, if you put on the Tsuuzetsu album for me and I didn't know this band, and someone said that, a couple of years earlier the guitarist was doing Lunacy covers, I would be very surprised because I don't really hear much Lunacy in this at all.
Yeah, they grew quite a bit, and I would argue they're still growing. Where they are now in their growth period, I have no idea. But
well,
it's somewhere.
As a person who's listened to everything that they put out, I will say that there's something that you will have to respect them for, which is that they are musicians. With every album, even the ones that I didn't like, I will always say that this is a musician's album in a sense that like they have an idea, they have a concept, and they're working it, and they're doing their thing. Like I think Mia is an artist for sure, and like Tatsuro is in a league of his own. We've sung the praises of the rest of them as well, throughout this episode, I think. And it speaks to their talent, to how quickly they were able to develop even at this time.
Oh yeah, I don't feel like we sang enough of Satoshi's praises, but his drum lines are so catchy. It's crazy. I find myself just like drumming along to a Satoshi beat just in my everyday life, especially from this period, but for pretty much all of their albums, there's something very unique about him. Oh, also in a way, this kind of ties into VKGY, but I would consider this the era that fits in with the tag Mishitsuke, because while literally they were on the Mishitsu Neros label, there's a tag on VKGY that fits this era best for this band sonically as well.
Yeah, there's like two of these bands.
Yeah, I know.
Tops. There's like Lab and stuff like that, but I mean, for me, Lab is Lab, and you know, it's like literally like Caligari and Merlin Mook.
I was going to say, since our listeners can't see video, but for every sample that we played, Aaron was air drumming along, so you can tell that he's a big fan of Satoshi.
Love it. Huge fan. He's also a ripped dude. He's like always in the gym. It's great. He's just like buff. He's got these big old guns.
Yeah, didn't he actually quit because he was just like, well, I'm not committing the time to develop as a musician like the other guys, and I'm doing other stuff. And which it's a very sad way for me to put it like that, because like he's paid his dues. He doesn't have anything to prove at this point. Like, bro, you do exactly what you want.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people speculate that he quit to be a full-time gym trainer because that's what he did immediately after.
I mean, it might also be related to not wanting to do touring life or something. I mean, could be family reasons behind it. I won't speculate, but you never know. Anyway, I think that's it for this episode. So if you guys like us talking about MUCC, let us know, and we might do part 3.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Having you on, we're keeping you on. And sayonara.